We are joined now by Shea Dixon of the Bengal Tiger on three's LSU site. And Shea, you wrote a story last week that very much got my attention because LSU is going to Tuscaloosa to play Alabama in a game that likely will determine who wins the SEC West. And basically, the headline of the story is, will any of LSU's 4 transfer corners play against Alabama? Which is one of those like, gulp, do what now?
And for a team that already is one of the worst at defending the pass in the country. But yes, they took 4 transfer corners this offseason with the hope of all 4 of them contributing in a big way. They only returned 1 scholarship corner from last year's team who only played on special teams. He had no cornerback starts or reps a year ago. So they took J.K. Johnson out of Ohio State. In the fall, he has season-ending surgery, so he was out from the start. Denver Harris, Texas A&M, a guy who'd been suspended half the year with the Aggies, has already been in and out of what Brian Kelly calls availability in games this year. And this past week, or 2 weeks ago, I should say, did not see playing time. And Deuce Chestnut from Syracuse, who was an all-ACC performer a year ago when they took him, also sort of in the doghouse of sorts. Brian Kelly has not gone into too much detail, but has said that both of them are on the team, are on scholarship, but are not practicing and are not available. You get to the 4th guy in Zy Alexander, the one guy who's been the consistent one, the 8 starts and leading the team in every corner in reps, snap count this year in a meaningless game, which this happens, but against Army, you're blowing him out. It's halftime. He picks off a Hail Mary pass, basically, tries to return it, and he gets injured. And now Brian Kelly said he's going to be out at least a few weeks. That means he's probably not playing against Bama. So I lay it out for you like that. And it seems like they might not have any of the 4 for Alabama, which is a big issue for them.
So who would be starting at corner if none of those 4 are playing?
Sage Ryan is a guy that has obviously been around this program a few years. In fact, he picked LSU over Bama in a very tight race a few years back. He's a junior now, but he has started a good bit at corner, especially with those transfers in and out of the lineup. So he's a lock to start. But after that, they're turning probably to true freshmen. If not, they'll go to that one guy who I said was the only cornerback they returned from a year ago, LaTerrence Welsh. He's yet to earn a start yet in his college career. Could it come in Tuscaloosa? Maybe so. Because of the other options, only one of them has a start under their belt. That's true freshman Ashton Stamps. I think it'll be one of those 2 guys, unless Denver Harris gets himself out of whatever doghouse he's in, and then he would be the starter.
Availability. I like that's a good way to put it. He's in availability or out of availability. He's not available right now. But that is it's so strange because we talk about that and it does seem to be a big problem, especially against a quarterback in Jalen Milroe, who is a very good thrower of the deep ball. But on the other side, LSU's offense has hit its stride. Jayden Daniels, probably the front runner for the Heisman Trophy. Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas having incredible seasons. How weird is it to see this team that seemingly can't be stopped on offense, just can't get it together on defense?
Yeah, well, you think back to just how crazy is it to see an LSU offense do this. We saw it in 2019 and thought it would never be replicated. Granted, that team had 15 games, so they put up some pretty monster numbers. But LSU, this team is on pace in the regular season to match those numbers. It has been unbelievable to watch. But that year in 2019, they also had a ton of guys who now play in the NFL on defense. LSU maybe doesn't necessarily have that this year, and certainly have fallen off from the defensive backfield performance from where they're normally at. This is a school that can rightfully say, we are DBU up there with the Ohio States, the Bamas across the past decade, 2 decades. What's the wildest for me, Andy, is forever, through all the Les Miles years, LSU fans, they could stop anyone's offense. That didn't matter. They just prayed one day, give us an offense. Now they have the number 1 offense in college football, but DBU is gone. These are transfers who now aren't available, and you're turning to true freshmen, and none of these guys are 5 stars. Not that their rankings are everything that matters, but it's such a flip of the script from where they were 10 years ago to where they are right now. I covered all of it over the past 15, 20 years for LSU. I didn't think I would ever sit here talking with you about, boy, nobody can stop LSU's offense, but that defense is, oh man, how much can Bama put up on him? It is a wild thing to think about.
And LSU even throws to the tight end now sometimes too. It's like all of the things they wished for have come true, and all of the things that they were used to are gone. It is very strange. But let's talk a little more about that offense because it is on a fairly historic pace right now. Jayden Daniels was good coming into this season, but what has changed, as the season's gone on that's made him even better?
I think we saw it at Arizona State early in his career that he was a highly efficient passer, didn't turn it over. And when he got to LSU in year one, he's learning the system. He's getting on the same page as what the coaches want and getting a feel for his receivers and the O line and everything else. And remember, he was the number one dual threat quarterback in the country coming out of high school, signing with Arizona State. So last year, we saw him do it with his legs a lot, and he didn't turn the ball over much. But this offseason, even Brian Kelly would say he's got to take risks. Sometimes a turnover is okay if those other 5 or 6 times you're scoring a touchdown on those deep balls. That's what he's done this year. And not only is he willing to throw it deep, he's like incredibly accurate. He's still a high 70% pass, in the 70% completion range for passing the football and is not having to run it as much. Now, he's still, if you go look up the quarterback numbers, Andy, yes, he is right up there with Penix and leading the nation in passing yards, but he's still top 5 among quarterbacks in rushing. He's just not having to do it all. They found balance with Logan Diggs coming out of the portal, who right now is the number 3 rusher in the SEC. That's something that nobody would guess, that LSU would have a leading rusher that wasn't Jayden Daniels. We thought it would just be a committee thing again. So I think the balance that Logan Diggs has brought, the O-line playing well, has allowed Jayden to say, okay, I can sit back here, go through my reads, take advantage, as you said, Mason Taylor at tight end, but really those big two at receiver, Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas. Malik's going to be a first rounder. Brian Thomas has played himself into a top 50 pick. Who knows at this point how high Jayden Daniels could go in the NFL draft? So it's been really interesting to see that they circled these couple things, throw the deep ball more, be a little bit more aggressive in the offseason. And not only does he do both, but now, you see PFF grades or whatever it is, he's the most efficient deep ball passer in the country. Like he went from he wasn't throwing any deep balls to, oh, okay, I'll be the most efficient guy in America at it. It's been fun to watch. And look, we saw it with Leonard Fournette. You'll remember this. He went into that Bama game. The Heisman was already won. They were bringing it down to New Orleans. It was his. And he ran for 10 yards in that game, 30 yards, and fell out of contention. So yes, Jayden is in the Heisman race. We've both been around long enough to know that it all hinges really on what happens in Tuscaloosa. Consider this is a 2-loss LSU team that's got a quarterback in the Heisman race.
Yeah, this is definitely a make or break game for Heisman candidates on both sides of the ball. How can LSU win this game? Because we know they're probably going to have trouble stopping Alabama at times. But how do they stay on the kind of pace offensively that they have against everybody else who may not have the kind of defense that Alabama has?
I think that the offense will look. Bama's defense is among the best, if not the best, they will have faced. So they're up against that. Now, LSU is still proven they'll keep scoring on anybody at this point. Every week, they're just scoring, scoring, scoring. In fact, for the gamblers out there, LSU is not, they've hit every single over this year. No matter how high you keep putting it, they're hitting the over. So the offense is there. Here's the key to this game. And we could talk matchups all day and position battles. How many stops does LSU's defense get?
Yeah.
Is it 2? Is it 3? Is it 4? Because as that number goes up, so does the percentage of winning this football game. I think a lot of people right now are trying in their head to say, will it take 3 stops? Will it take 4 punts from Alabama? Will it take a turnover? Because in a game like this, I think that's going to be the difference. I think Bama's offense is good enough to put up points on an LSU defense that hasn't been great. And LSU's offense, being the best in the country, will be able to score some points on Alabama, even if they are a very good defense. So it's going to come down to stops for LSU. That's at least in my opinion.
Yeah, it's like watching a tennis match. How often does somebody break serve? And you're absolutely right because, and I do feel like that's how LSU games have gone. Like the Ole Miss game and the Missouri game, prime examples of that. Ole Miss got a couple stops, and that's why LSU lost. Missouri could not, and that's why LSU won.
Sure. And yeah, in that second half, LSU got stops in that Missouri game. And that's kind of what allowed them to pull ahead and then ultimately win that game. So I think that's what it comes down to. And you mentioned a tennis reference. let's just take it a step further there on the court or whatever, the clay, whatever you want
Yeah.
to call it. Unforced errors. And that's
Yep.
really a key here. Do they turn the ball over? Are they shooting themselves in the foot? Are they racking up penalties to where you're always then behind the chains every few drives? Those are the kind of things that you have to minimize in a game like this. To be able to go into Tuscaloosa and win is very hard. Before Burrow and them did it, it had been a long time since LSU had gone up to Tuscaloosa and won a football game. So we'll see. I know with the CBS doubleheader, we got a good game at the noon hour or 2:30,
Yep.
and then 6:45 it kicks off a number 8 versus number 13 matchup here for what likely, and I don't want to discredit Ole Miss, they're still in this, but the team that wins this game has a very, very good shot of winning the West and getting to Atlanta.
That's exactly right. Shea Dixon, big one this week. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Andy.
Thank you so much for watching. Just a reminder, subscribe to this channel right here so you never miss an episode of Andy Staples on 3. And oh, by the way, watch all the other great videos on the On3 Sports YouTube channel.